Oh.
An Odyssey station.
Today's hits and yesterday's favorites, all through the night. Magic 106.7 WMJX.
Yes, happy Valentine's Day, Melrose. It's Tom Catalini here from Let's Talk Melrose. I'm here with my lovely co-hosts. Please introduce yourselves.
He said the lovely one.
Oh, okay. I'm Jen LeClaire.
I'm Sam Hammer.
The young looking one.
And this is Let's Talk Melrose. Melrose, a show where Melrosians talk to Melrosians about Melrose. I don't know how that guy did it. 4 hours a night, every night for 40 years. David Allen Boucher. Those of us originally from the area will remember that. No better way to be soothed into total comfort than on Magic 106.7. And I hope we don't get in too much trouble for rebroadcasting here.
For that. I think they're going to offer you a job, Tom. I think we would have gotten in trouble, except that they're going to be so impressed that they're going to come call.
No, I always took you for a morning show guy, but I think late night might be your thing.
Oh, I go round the clock. Yeah, there's no limit.
Right.
Anybody that's got an opening, I'm there. No problem.
Well, so last week we did ask Tom Shampoo if he would be available for Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
He took a stand on no Valentine's Day, and yet
a pretty adamant stand, and yet he's nowhere to be found tonight.
Yep. So we hope he's feeling. He said he wasn't feeling well.
Mm-hmm.
We hope he's feeling better. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
He got bit by the love bug, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's for the rest of us over here. It's Alt Valentine's Day, Taco Tuesday. Shout out to David Martin, who fed some of the top fans some tacos. Some homemade things. Yeah. Oh. Anyway, moving right along.
So I'm trying to get to Stoner to pick up my kid on Sunday afternoon, and all of a sudden I had to take quite a sizable detour in Melrose.
Detour.
Because of
how come
Water World in Melrose.
Water main broke on West Wyoming, right in front of the Lincoln School.
Oh my
There's
goodness!
a picture right here, and it's
wow.
You can really tell how deep it is, but it was pretty bad. You could see the bubbling up of the water. Yeah. So that was going on for quite some time. Were you guys impacted?
Yeah.
I did not. I must have not left my house. I don't remember where I was on Sunday. I don't know what I was doing on Sunday, but.
Well, Jen, of course you do. It was the Super Bowl.
That's right.
It was big sports ball day.
Next up, sports ball. Right, like one of the lead sports ball days of the year. I totally forgot. Yes, that's right. I was watching the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we walked down to the Knights to watch the Super Bowl over there.
Oh.
We had to walk through the area.
I didn't know
and the
that was
police.
a thing.
Yeah,
well, that's for the members.
Invite.
That was a members only.
I was
members
home.
only event.
For the Knights, not for the Queens. Go ahead. Go on.
But we walked down there and it was all blocked off, but the businesses were open, which was nice, and it was fixed in time for school, right?
It was. So I didn't want to get out of bed until I saw whether we had school or not. And there was no word. So we went for it. And shockingly, the road was open. I was shocked.
Yeah, they patched it right up.
Yeah. Thanks, DPW, and to those who came in to help us with this massive breakage. I was pleasantly surprised. So thanks to everybody who participated, our police detail, and DPW, and anyone else who came in to patch up our roads. Yeah. Thanks. You kept us going.
The kids were like, "Oh man."
I know. Yeah.
Well, the kids are not thanking DPW, but the moms and dads are. So everybody stay tuned. Joining us a little bit later, we have 3 representatives from the Melrose Commission on Disability to talk about their recent ADA report and findings from the city study. in 2 parts. So they're going to be joining us at the end of the show to talk about those reports and talk about ways that the city can participate in public comment on those.
But first, the news. All right, this one is under Tom Shampoo's name.
Yes, I know. So Tom would have said, don't forget that the mayor is delivering his State of the City in person at the Driscoll Learning Commons at the Melrose High School on February 27th, 7:30 p.m. For those who are not able to attend in person, you can watch it live, and it will be recorded on MMTV.
I wonder what adjective he'll use. You know, they say
the state of the city
is strong. Or
what would your adjective be for Melrose?
Like Mad Libs. Let's just do it. Let's just give the mayor a Mad Libs sheet and have him fill it in. And
speech
it's busy.
That's when you just ask for a list. You just ask for a list of adjectives and adverbs, right? And then you fill in the speech later.
Yeah. All right. On next week's show, we'll have the mayor's pre-written Mad Libs version of the State of the City.
All right.
All right. Well, that's not all. The Mystic Valley Public Health Coalition has collected substance use data and is sharing findings. You know who they're sharing them with? The community. Students, caregivers, local employees, and community members are invited to 2 more upcoming 1-hour conversations to learn more and provide feedback. The participants will receive, I remember this now because you get a gift card.
That's right.
So either a $15 Target gift card for the youth, $25 Target gift card for adults as a thank you for participating. And we're posting the link right now. You got to get involved with that.
Yeah, I agree. Good information. What is that? Sam is adding stuff to the show doc.
Yes,
so you're going to have to talk about it because I don't know what you're writing.
That's fine. Recently, some of our Melrose Police Department officers are heading to elementary schools around Melrose to give high fives to kids on the way in, which is great. I'm glad they're coming out. And he said they have a new social media community engagement person. So follow them on Facebook. It's actually really fun to watch. They're doing more personal things. It's very engaging. So definitely do that. And then I reached out as the co-president of the Lincoln PTO to offer our services for more.
A little humble brag there. Yeah.
Because we want to shoot some hoops. We want to do some things.
Yeah. It seems like they are trying to get out there more. I haven't seen them out in the community per se, but I've seen the posts on Facebook and their social media being kind of like more activated. It's great. It's a wonderful initiative. So,
and as we've talked about before, the majority of them are Melrosians. So let's do this.
You should be able to meet your neighbors and know who they are. They are there to serve us, and they're also our neighbors. Absolutely.
Yep.
So also there are 2 commissions or committees in the city right now seeking new members. One is the Melrose Cultural Council is seeking some new members.
Isn't that your gig?
Not anymore. I was on the Cultural Council. I stepped down because I told you that. Breaking news. Because I'm focused more on the Creative Alliance right now. But the Melrose Cultural Council is the local grant-making organization from the Massachusetts State Cultural Council. They disperse funding for arts and cultural projects here in Melrose. So they just finished their last grant cycle. So if you are interested in joining to help decide how the arts and cultural money gets spent for next year, they're looking particularly for people who have some marketing skills and communication skills. So Melrose Cultural at gmail.com.
Somebody who can talk like this, maybe.
Tom, you seem interested.
Yes.
Are you kidding me? I've always wanted to disperse funds.
Yeah. Yes. And I don't know whether or not it comes with a parking spot. And then also the Melrose.
I'll walk. It's right in town.
Is it the Melrose Historical Commission also is looking?
That's Shampoo's gig.
Yeah, I know, but I think they're looking for a new person also.
Yes, because their chair had to step down. They had a new chair. Well, last week. We were there, right?
Presented, yeah. So both of those great commissions, and it's also the Melrose Historical Commission's upcoming anniversary. So they'll be doing some 50 years. So they'll be doing some fun stuff this year.
All right. Cool. And you know what
All
else?
right, I'm going to apply to the Cultural Council because one of us should be on it.
Okay.
Can I give you a list of other things as well
that you should be doing?
Yeah, like to pick and choose. Like you should have choices, Tom. You don't just jump on the first council that.
If elected, I will serve.
Okay. Okay. There's also a photo contest coming up. Our fun friends at the
I like this.
The Melrose Rec Department. They have a new catalog every season. So their spring brochure is coming up, and they're doing a photo contest for Melrose citizens of all ages. Photos that'll be on the cover of their spring brochure catalog. So photos must be of Melrose residents taken within Melrose. Participants must have permission to use the photo from everyone in the photo that they're taking. So they're looking for like people recreating, having fun, hanging out in Melrose. The deadline is February 22nd, and there's a link to how you submit. And if you read the fine print, it says there's no financial compensation, just bragging rights.
Yeah, but that's pretty
Kind
good.
of like this show.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jen,
our two co-hosts are prolific photographer.
Yeah.
Photographic take.
I think we should submit a selfie of ourselves recreating.
Why don't we take pictures of ourselves recreating? That's brilliant. All over town.
And then we can win the award to add to our slew of prestigious awards that we have on
yes,
the show.
But I don't know if the rec department has a program for juggling.
Well, if they do, we could win.
We have that.
We have.
The juggling. Yeah. When we had Stuart on the show. My goodness, he's still on the opening every week. Stuart's one of the. And I think Sam and Tom aren't on it.
Are not right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's all right. We're a surprise. It's all good.
Yeah.
Oh my God. All right. Here, how about one of you guys? We got to bring on our guests. One of you guys want to talk about what's coming up this week?
Oh my goodness, there's so much coming up this week.
And
Wednesday,
I'll tell you what you got wrong.
There's a virtual program at library. Abolitions.
Oh my gosh, never mind.
Abolition's foot soldiers, female anti-slavery societies in Antebellum, Massachusetts. That's not a lot to go on. What is that?
I know. So it's a virtual program run in from the library, but in partnership with several other libraries. So this is for Black History Month, and so it's a really interesting. It's a virtual program, but it should be a really interesting program about how women kind of helped with the anti-slavery movement up north. So part of Black History Month programming with the library.
That's great.
Nice.
Yeah. Follow Your Art Community Studios, their writers group is doing creative. They have a monthly creative writing for adults, and this one is how to make a scene.
Now, what is that? Make a scene? That like playwriting, or is that in a novel?
I believe this one's with Tug Yergrow. He's a frequent collaborator with them. So it's
Awesome.
So it's not about my kids at a restaurant. Not like that.
Well, it could be. I mean, it could be.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
And then last week we had on some friends from the Polymnius Choral Society talking about their program on Thursday, March 5th, 3:30 at the middle school. Well, this is
different thing. That's not the show.
No, this is leading up to, in support of the show.
Considering Matthew Shepard is coming up on the 5th. And then before that, there's a documentary called Matthew Shepard is a Friend of Mine, screening at the Melrose Highland Church, also this Thursday.
Yeah.
So
those are just some of the things happening this week. And if you want to find out more about what's going on this week and coming up ahead, the Melrose Creative Alliance has an ongoing calendar, and there's an email list that you can sign up for to get all that information just delivered right to your inbox.
Great. So great.
All right, now we got to get to our guests. This is what the people have been waiting for.
Exactly.
All right, so let's bring them on. I'm going to play the walk-up music now. Welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Garen, David, you're still on mute. You should unmute. Aaron, welcome. You are from the Disability Commission in Melrose. Is that right?
It is right. Can you hear me though?
Yes.
I was messing with my microphone in the back. So, okay, yay.
Yep, you're fine. Thank you for being here. You're here because you've just released, in partnership with the city, you've just released a report on ADA sort of audit of all the city buildings. We'll let you talk a little bit more about that. And there's an opportunity for the public to comment and provide feedback on that report. Yeah.
Yep.
I think I'll toss it over to David, our chair.
Well, I'll start in that, please. Karen and Aaron, please dive in. So, first of all, thanks for this opportunity to share a little bit about this effort. The city, under the Americans with Disabilities Act, every municipality must undertake what's called a self-evaluation and transition plan. And essentially, it's evaluating a city in terms of its compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, but going beyond that as well, looking at accessibility issues. So primarily looking at buildings, recreation areas, but also public policies as well. The last time Melrose did this was 1996. So it was a long time ago. The ADA was passed in 1991, or actually came into effect in 1991. And so it's been a long, long time.
Is there a cadence where we're supposed to have done this?
No, there's no requirement. I mean, it had to be done when the ADA was passed, but it should be updated regularly. So I think we would say as a commission, it should not have been this long since it was last updated.
27 years is quite a gap.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean,
The process,
go ahead.
sorry, the process of getting this study done was actually our first real task. We've only been around as a commission for 3 years. And David has been incredibly instrumental in getting we used consultants and they did a great job. So we're really excited to have done the study finally after so many years.
Yeah. So it's we used an organization. We got a grant from the Mass Office of Disability, and then through that funding hired the Institute for Human-Centered Design, which are really experts on accessibility. And so they did a survey of all the buildings and recreation areas and parks throughout the city. They looked at city policies. And the end result is this evaluation. They call it a self-evaluation, because they evaluated on our behalf, and as well as then a wide series of recommendations in terms of improving accessibility. So, and also prioritize them. That part's not really. We have spreadsheets that are not part of the public release, although we certainly could make them available for anybody interested in terms of the level of priority of these items. In summary, I think it is very comprehensive. But right now, the report is out for public comment through the 24th. So we would love residents of the city to take a look at this, to get back to us with comments, whether you just think, yes, this is great, this is wonderful, or where do we go from here? Because it really is, as we say, a blueprint for the next few years in terms of really increasing the accessibility and, frankly, making Melrose a city that is really welcoming to people of all abilities. So, but we're really excited about this. And so where the process stands, we're getting public comment right now. And there is an actual meeting on Wednesday night from 6 to 8. If people don't want to email comments in, they can come to our public meeting. It's in the Cassidy conference room, 6 to 8 on Wednesday, the 15th. Also, I neglected to mention, where do you find out about this report? So if you go on the city website, easiest way is just look for the most recent press releases. And there are a couple of press releases regarding the release of the report. It also gives so you can actually look at the report online. Copies are also available at the public library. So if somebody in that form. Also, if anybody needs it in an alternative format, please reach out to the commission. Reach out to us. Our email address is commissionondisability@cityofmelrose.org, and you can also find that information on the city website. So
it's interesting, David. You mentioned the city website. Was the city website in scope for the evaluation? Any of the technology capabilities?
That was not. We could have gotten that. It's definitely something that needs to be done. The amount of the grant was not sufficient to do that evaluation. They did some cursory look at it. And said it needs to be evaluated further, but definitely that's part of it, though. Part of accessibility, have a website, fully accessible website. So
yeah,
right.
But we did. just even though they didn't look at the website in particular, they did look at sort of city employees training on inclusion and things like that. And one of the things that we've been talking about in our meetings is that one of the most important things that was addressed in the study is the fact that we currently in the city of Melrose do not have an ADA coordinator, so a person who is like designated to be the liaison between the community and any issues they're having with accessing buildings, recreation spots, anything like that. So that's of huge of importance to us, that the city get an ADA coordinator. If full-time or part-time, it doesn't really matter. Well, I mean, obviously we would prefer full-time, but yeah, that's one of the things that they look at.
So did they look at that?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say just, and maybe this is already answered, but like, is that even a role that we have or don't have in the school system, or would that role sort of play across,
It used to be a dual
those
role.
domains? Okay.
Yeah, somebody used to have that role that was also another position. Maybe David or Garen could.
So it is a legal requirement under the Americans with Disabilities Act that there be an ADA coordinator, somebody be designated. There was a city employee, actually the building inspector, that was part of their duties. The building inspector left several months ago. And as we looked at this, so right now, one of the findings of the report is there hasn't been an ADA coordinator. We've had discussions with the mayor around that position. But we feel it can't be something that's just added onto somebody's other, duties at the bottom of the job description.
Right.
Particularly when I think the public sees this report, they're going to say, okay, there's needs somebody to be the point person on that. Plus, there's just also a need. Let's say you need a sign language interpreter or a meeting, or some other kind of accommodation. Somebody they can easily contact who knows, okay, got it. We'll take care of that. Rather than, and I think, like Karen or Aaron probably can, speak to this, is so much of accessibility is not saying, oh, yeah, just let us know if you need help. That's not acceptable. It needs to be automatic. It needs to be thought through. It needs to be easy to get when you need it.
So I can give you an example. Well, unless you have a question, I can give you an example of how that kind of has worked with our commission. So right now, it's kind of we're like our commission is sort of like the catch-all for situations like this that come up, and we're able to implement some help. Not really right away though. I mean, it's because we meet once a month, and then we have to have somebody be tasked with it, and it's not as fast as having just a designated person. But for example, with the most recent election, we were pretty instrumental in getting. So the Melrose Middle School is where everybody votes now. As of, I'm not sure, better than I do which election that started in. Do you know?
Pandemic.
COVID. Yeah. During COVID. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you cannot. So, and I'm not. So there's vote by mail, and there's also voting at the middle school. And during the first election and during COVID, I actually went to vote at the middle school. And when I put in the address, well, so obviously I know where the middle school is. It's right in the middle of Linfells Parkway. You can't miss it. So I knew where to go. But I've only lived in Melrose. At that point, I had only lived there for 6 years or something. And so I knew exactly where it was. So I was with my my spouse and my 2 kids. And so we went and we parked in the handicap parking spot. And we was like, oh, great, we're going to go vote. It was didn't expect to encounter a barrier to access at that point, which is what it's called, a barrier to access.
Yeah.
You can't access something because I had my cane with me. I don't always I have a dynamic disability because I have multiple sclerosis. So sometimes I use a cane, sometimes I use a AFO on something under my foot. But I had a cane with me that day, and thankfully I did, because when you park at the front, and
you're on the wrong side of the building, right?
Yeah, it's far away. It's really far.
And it's uphill, and it's up a bunch of stairs. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a bowl of stairs. It's down and up at the same time.
Right.
So I was shocked. Luckily there was, I think, one single railing in the middle that I could use. But it was at that point that I don't even know if I was on the commission yet. Because it was one of the main things that I wanted to talk about when I got onto the commission.
Right. Are there spots in the back where the back entrance is?
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
there's tons of handicap spots in the back.
Okay.
But
And
you
so-
have to
you would have to
You have to
that-
know that.
You have to know that
that.
that's the entrance to use, and
Yeah.
I don't remember the handicap spots up there by the gym.
Yeah, there is.
There have to
There
be.
probably
There
are,
have
but
to be, yeah.
there needs to be, then it's up to like the elections commission or someone else, right, to, in their communications about where to vote and how to vote, to have that
Right.
information available. You
It's
said,
just-
one of you said something really interesting about this job description. It can't be tacked on to the bottom of someone else's job description, because
Mhm.
that's exactly where it would live, at the bottom of someone else's job
Yeah,
description, and it
exactly.
will never be a priority unless
Yeah,
it's like someone's job, you know.
So
Yeah.
I've worked at a couple of the museums in Boston. So they're well attended, large, publicly accessible buildings. Even though you got to pay a ticket to get in, but both have had an accessibility coordinator of sorts or a small team, and it's it's usually not enough. But the range of issues that come up anywhere that's open to the public, there's stuff that constantly needs to be tended to, whether it's educating us on policies about animals and how we're supposed to handle people that come in with a support animal of some sort, or like you talked about, maybe sign language assistance for some, and there's of course all the physical stuff you think about as well, doorways and how doors work and all of that stuff, and then you get into website and technology and where everything's enabled, and there's just a whole range of things, and you really have to bake it into everything everybody does.
Yeah,
But you
it's-
need a central point person
Right.
to be shepherding that and to be doing that
And
over time. Yeah.
I would say further, my perspective is that the person should either be disabled or be very close to the disabled community in a way that they would know what the barriers to access could be. Because these barriers to access, like you're talking about, are very, they're so easy to overlook. I only became disabled about 3 years ago. And so it was a steep learning curve for me for just seeing what I couldn't do anymore, where I couldn't go. So yeah, it would be useful to have somebody that is a part of the disability community, or is just very close to the disability community.
Yeah,
Right.
I want to add one thing. I think that when people see the self-evaluation and the plan, it was sort of what we were just talking about, which is there are some big ticket items. There's no doubt. I mean, in the schools was probably the biggest ticket items. There was several. They went through all the schools and found. And we have a lot older school buildings, so to some extent you would expect some of that. But the also report talked a lot about signage, a lot about easy fixes.
Communication definitely is going to be a key to this as well.
Communication, Garen, that's good, because you've been dominating the conversation the whole time. So it's good to hear you.
Yeah.
It's good to hear you bring this up. Maybe you could tell us about that, Garen, and anything else you want to.
Well, I think I've been on the commission for 3 years, signing on for my second. David and I are both signing on for second terms, for second 3-year terms. Starting from the beginning, just getting an idea in the middle of a pandemic, what our community looks like that we serve. It's been a huge part of it. We've talked about this in our own meetings, and that we'll get people to come by and say, I'm not disabled, but I support you, or they'll say, I'm not there yet, but being a service that is, static throughout the city, and thinking of these things and assessing our own measure of seeing things to encompass all elements of a disability. There's so much intersectionality with disability, where, I myself am visually impaired, but I have absolutely 2 working legs that, put me on a train and I can travel all over the place, where other people would not have that. So training ourselves, first and foremost, as people with disabilities, to see others' disabilities and be aware of those as potential, points for us to work on is huge. But also identifying the community has just been a huge part of this. And certainly during a pandemic, it's been a lot more difficult.
Yeah. And I was so happy to see that you had worked with the Institute for Human-Centered Design. I'd taken some classes with them hundreds of years ago with I think Valerie Fletcher. It was like,
yes,
bubbled up. Okay. Yes. It like came out of my head like a spark earlier today. And one thing that I learned from her was that when cities and the built environment and the community really designs our spaces and again our community for humans first, for those who need the most vulnerable, those who need it the most, everybody wins.
Right.
Everybody lives in a
Right.
much better place. Everyone has
Sure.
easier access to things. Everyone is able to take an access and have opportunities to access.
Absolutely.
And that's one thing I really loved about this particular organization. But I do know that they do have training there as well. I don't know if they still do,
Yes, they do,
for
yeah.
municipal employees. And is that something that you had looked at as well?
We definitely, it's definitely in the report. There's a lot of discussion about training, as Aaron already said, about
Mhm.
training employees. So when we look at resources like that, I think we as commission members also continue. I mean, as we look at our roles, there's always more for all of us to learn and to get up to speed on and sort of become, build our expertise. So yeah, that's definitely part of our overall effort.
That's
Just
great.
build
Because
our
this came,
expertise, but build the expertise of the city as well. in
that's
place.
great. Because this came from a grant. I was doing some research before. The grant was from February, right, of last year.
Yeah, it was. We applied for it in September. It's all blur right now.
Oh.
It was accepted in February by the city council. And so basically this was a project once they got going. It was February till basically December. By the time they did the surveys, did the report. So we got a preview of the report in December, gave them some feedback, and now it's out for public comment. I just kind of to where the process goes from here. Once we get public comment, Institute for Human Centered Design will do kind of one more look. It'll be presented officially to the city council. And then it is our plan at that point to start to meet with other community groups on this. And we're definitely going to do a presentation to the school committee and discuss with them the findings of this regarding the schools. So, but really, and part of our role is to also just talk to the city about, okay, you've got this, now what do we do? And actually, I get an interesting example of that real quick is Garen and I met with a representative of the cemetery commission because there was findings about the cemetery in there, and it was great. And she was very, very interested in it, and we talked about, okay, where do we go from here? And a good example of like the kind of groups we want to meet with and discuss this with, in a way, because we're not here to like point fingers. We're here to say, okay, how do we address these issues that have been identified?
Yeah. The way I read some of the report, there's there's price tags to some of how to fix some of these issues or how to improve some of the issues, particularly around the sort of physical ADA issues in some of the city buildings. That was one of the biggest things that I saw in glancing over it. So there's price tags. I mean, we're sort of in budget season. Like how do you is part of your role to kind of advocate to help figure out how to prioritize some of these things and then advocate for some of these things to get ticked off little by little in the city budget? How does that work?
What do you think, Garen? I'll let you.
Well, certainly, certainly the schools are a huge priority, and they should be, definitely. I mean, I send my kids to the Hoover School. The Hoover School actually has some of the largest amounts of repairs that need to be done. Obviously, the newer buildings, the high school, the middle school are looking a whole lot better. But certainly, I think, the priority, should be with the schools for the most part. And, of course, City Hall. I think making that building accessible for people for government is just a good thing.
Right. So I just want to mention about the report. We're talking a lot about the report without actually like talking about what's in it, and also not seeing it. So it's actually really fun to look at part 2. There's like a part A and a part B, I think, or part 1 and part 2.
Yeah.
If you're going to open anything, open part B, because that part has little images of like everything that they looked at. So you can see like whatever, like, Foss Park, you can see like that there's like a curb that's not exactly correct. And you can see the City Hall, there's not a wheelchair height counter for a person to come and like do business, right? And they have images of all of that. So it was really interesting. I mean, I didn't get to go on a lot of the site visits just by nature of it being COVID and the nature of my disability, but I think Garen and David both went on the site visits. It's nice that they took such great photographs of like exactly what it was, what the issues are, and exactly where they are and everything. And so it's kind of like fun to look at it and see these little places that can be improved. I don't know, maybe I'm just
and to help sort of to Garen, to your earlier point, to like help educate all of ourselves to like look at things differently, like the
Right.
the counter
Right.
height, like just to recognize and become better at realizing that something that's accessible for you wouldn't be accessible for someone else, the height of the counter, etc. We did put the links to both of the part A and part B in the chat for the show, so people as they're watching will be able to access those and see what we're talking about.
We did get a question as well, sorry David, from Ellen, who asked, do you have any plan on including housing authority buildings? So the McCarthy and Steelhouse, and I did do a quick search and I did find the Steelhouse in part B in the second half. Did you also do the housing authorities in the?
They did. I believe they did. No, they went through any building that was where there's public space. They went through it. I don't recall off the top of my head, but they went through. We got the list of buildings from the city, and they went through every building that. I mean, the library they didn't, because the library is being completely rebuilt. Yeah. So, but I would have to go look at the report exactly, but I do know they went through the Steelhouse.
And McCarthy as well. I see them on page 80 something and 16. So there you go, Ellen. And there are some recommendations in here as well with the pictures, as Aaron was mentioning.
So going back to Tom's question, I think also, we had a discussion last night at our meetings are typically second Monday of the month from 6 to 8. They're always online.
We were just hanging out last night.
We were waiting for people to show up. Yeah.
We always welcome. People always welcome. We always have a public comment period. We love having people come to our meetings. They're always posted. The agendas are always posted, and the link are always posted on the city website, meeting website. But we talked about this last night. I mean, about what our role is, and in terms of this, I think part of it is, the city's got to make some decisions here about priorities. Now, obviously, the easy stuff is new signage. That should be done very quickly. Other stuff is going to take either adding it on. We're not experts on capital budgets, but adding to the city's capital budget, doing a bond issue, whatever. They're going to have to make some decisions. But this is not like optional. This is not like nice things to do. This is a compliance with the law. But it's also, part of making, as I said, you're making the city. What's the saying?
One community open to all.
Yes, exactly. So this is part of that. And to be honest, the mayor and the city department, city staff have been very supportive in the development of this.
Yeah,
so,
I'm sure they're.
The mayor was very thrilled we got it. I think they get it that yes, these things need to be addressed.
Yeah, and it might take time, but you have to, as long as we're kind of working on it. And,
It's overwhelming because you're trying to add it on later, what should have been done properly in the first place. And so that's always more problematic and expensive. And so it's a matter of prioritization. I still think like awareness is a big thing, because you might bring some work anyway and forget about this for whatever reason. So again, I go back to the technology, like in a website redesign, like does it work with screen readers? Do you have the right contrast stuff set up? Are you doing the alt tab? Like you're going to do almost kind of the same amount of work anyway if you were going to redesign the website. So, you have to have this part of the conversation. That's why I sort of like the coordinator role, because you need somebody really pushing for this 365 days a year. Otherwise, it won't really happen as fast as it could, just in the natural order of things, without huge expenses or whatever. Just as we progress, it just needs to be at the forefront.
Yeah.
Anytime anything you're absolutely right. I mean, if you think about accessibility as core to what you're doing, what you're designing, and just, it's on your mind rather than, that's an afterthought, is important. Obviously, Melrose has a lot of old buildings. I mean, that was a key issue to a lot of this long before the ADA, long before the architectural codes were created. Many of them in terms of access. So a lot of it does require retrofitting, but you're absolutely right. When efforts are being made to either build new buildings or renovate or whatever, accessibility needs to be right there, right?
Right.
And what's interesting, even with new construction, you still find things. I mean, this stuff and it was interesting in the middle school, for example, which is not that old. It wasn't huge things, but they did find a number of things there because things break down, codes change, all of that. So it's important. And it's also important to stay on top of it. In terms of, and let's give you some examples they found, like in the schools. Some was things like just hallways being blocked so they weren't wide enough for wheelchairs and things like that. Stuff that just, again, wasn't, this is going to cost nothing except people being.
Just move the stuff, right?
Right.
Well, yeah. That's actually something that we've run into a couple of times on the commission, even asking businesses occasionally to move your things that are residents will come to our commission and say, this is blocking the path. Can you do something about this? And we'll call the business. And occasionally it's like, it's an uphill battle kind of.
But some of it's a really easy fix.
It's right, but some it's an easy fix. But I wanted to talk about something that Tom mentioned a few moments ago. You were talking about like kind of like not like just building knowledge around sort of accessibility, and I would call that like inclusion, right? And I think that just the general public's awareness of disability inclusion is another part of our commission that we really take pretty seriously, and that we're in the upcoming, year, we would like to see our commission do some more speaking events regarding inclusion, because you don't know what you don't know, and it's not anybody's fault necessarily. That it's just, we're not here to like blame and shame anybody,
Right.
but like when you know like that some certain practices or whatever make life a lot easier for people with disabilities, then you might make that change, right? For me, one big thing that happened during COVID that has not really been rectified, it has a little bit, but is the lack of benches and stuff, not only just in the city, but in places like where you go, so like in Shaw's or whatever, like not to call out Shaw's, I think Shaw's is great. I saw like the manager on like Facebook the other day. Did you see that?
What?
But
The manager of the Shaw's.
yes, that was so sweet. He's
came
like,
onto the community page.
yeah.
And he was so nice. He was
Yeah.
like, "Hi, I'm the manager." It was
Thank
just
you for being patient with a renovation.
Oh, nice.
So on. Yeah, it was sweet.
Yeah, but those are places like in a grocery store or in a Target or like things like that. I used to just sit down when I was, if I was with somebody else and I would need to take a seat. And those are largely missing now. And unfortunately, when they're replaced, they can be replaced by, I don't think Melrose has any intention of doing this, but in other places they can be replaced by like sort of like, I don't know what the word, maybe help me out with the word, like not
replaced by like temporary seating, or
no, like benches that
ergonomically, not ergonomically.
No, benches that are intended to prevent people with
right. So they've got like funky like armrests and stuff. Yeah.
And they're intended to keep people from sleeping on them, which is unfortunate.
Right.
Or skateboarding.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But yeah, that's a really simple example of something that's gone now, and that a lot of people really could use.
Yeah. So speaking to that, Maya Jamaluddin, when she ran for city council 2 times ago, was one of her platforms was around again the outdoor environment, and specifically benches and places to sit at bus stops that we don't have. We still need some of these things in our outdoor environment as well. Was that covered at all in the report? Like certain municipal. Well, you did some parks and things, but
yeah, they did all the parks, they did all the recreation areas. So and things like that were addressed in the report. I read it all, and I can't remember every detail. A lot of it on the parks and recreation were lack of pathways for people to access, to access spaces, access spectator areas, or access fields. And I mean, we are excited. There is the new accessible playground over on Warren Street, which is great to see. We're hoping to see more. I mean, that's done now. Hoping to see more recreation areas with accessible equipment as well. So, but what it was, I mean, again, people don't think of recreation areas often in terms of accessibility, but a lot of issues there as well.
But
Sam, that's a great point, Sam, about public transportation, because I think in all 3 years that we've been in existence, I think we've had citizens come to us and talk to us about the accessibility of bus stops, of train stations, specifically with bus stops. I think with snow removal has been a big thing, but that's really a good point, and I don't think that's covered in the breadth of the report.
Yeah, that wasn't really in their scope, but it's a whole other area that
certainly.
The new ADA coordinator will tackle that.
That's
Get
right.
we'll get that person on that. Yeah.
Right.
Well, but it's another good example of when they plow the streets and nobody thinks, oh, wait a second, we've got to make sure the ramps are all clear.
Right.
And we've got to make sure the bus stops are clear. They just plow and again, I message to also our community. People often pile the snow right on the ramps at corners, and that is that's you're blocking access when you do that. We realize.
Well, you have friends and advocates on the bike ped committee because they take
sure
pictures
do.
of that and they call it out all the time.
Yep.
So you've got
They
some.
attend our meetings a lot.
You've
Yeah.
got
They
you've got
attend
some
our meetings.
ally. You've got some allies
Very,
there.
very good allies on that.
Yep. Yep.
And
And here too.
Yes.
David
And-
is David is talking about wheelchair use, or just any or cane or walker. I've used all three, but I generally would use a cane in the winter. But it's also like when we're talking about inclusion and access, it's also strollers for parents, right? Like
Right.
It does benefit everybody.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
these,
Yeah. Well, the term used in the field is universal access.
Yes.
So, and it seems somewhat obvious, but anything that's made that, when it's access, something that's created often for people with disabilities creates greater access for everybody.
Right.
Ramps, as you said, Aaron, great for, with strollers, or if you have a luggage cart on wheels, or you're making a delivery.
Or if you're
And
trying to take
this
your
goes on and on.
shopping cart all the way home to your neighborhood,
right.
and leave it there.
I mean, another good example is captioning, which
Right. Yes.
is so obviously helpful to people
Yes.
who are deaf or hard of hearing, but it's also helpful to lots of people with people with learning issues, people who don't, English is verbally, it's hard for them to
Right.
understand.
Right.
Actually, I'll tell you, the two biggest uses of closed captioning, believe it or not, are people in sports bars, and also people, two partners in bed watching TV. One's trying to sleep and one's trying to watch a show.
Oh,
Yeah.
Those are the two biggest uses.
David, I don't know you that well.
Where is this
So
going? Where is this going? It is Valentine's Day. But
Valentine's.
whoa.
It is Valentine's Day. Oh, I started out with the David Allen Boucher. Yeah. That's what got him going.
David, I
Those
was
are good
looking. I
examples
was looking
of-
at that when we launched this meeting, and actually we talked about this as a team last week, knowing that you guys were coming on this week. We were trying to dig into StreamYard, this platform, and see what it offers for live captioning, and it doesn't. It can't do it. So we will put it when we publish this afterwards to YouTube and our channels. We will make sure that the captioning is on. But that's something we did think of and weren't able to do here. So
What's funny is my kids use that all the time. So they're watching the Office or whatever they're watching, and they always have the
my
captioning
daughter
on.
does too. Yeah.
I was going to say, I was a high school teacher for 13 years before I became disabled. And so I can no longer teach, but my students, I mean, we were in a classroom, of course, like you would want the captions on, but like they would demand captions being on, and they would be like, what do you do? Why are there no captions on? Like, somebody turn them on. Like every time we would watch anything. And it felt to me like a generational almost like shift, because it could be really quiet in the room, and they would want them on for themselves, because also movies and television today are made very it's just so dark. Like I find it hard to watch things like that. I remember the end of Game of Thrones. It was like very difficult to see the action for anyone. And so the caption, and people kind of whisper a lot. So these, like, I don't know, it's just useful. I think
would
very
like
useful.
I
you
would
said,
like
it's
there to
helpful
be
for
a
everybody. Yeah.
Or the
I would
dairy
like
girl.
there to be a law, please, that the volume cannot keep going so low and so high for every show I'm watching. I'm riding the fader, as they say in the business.
It's true.
Up and down the whole time, because if there's some action scene, there's explosions that are shaking the room, and then, like you said, Aaron, then they're whispering, and then, oh my God, then when the commercials come on, the whole thing is shaking. It's chaos out there. Somebody needs to get a law on that.
But
The coordinator.
I just want to show you
ADA coordinator.
I just want to show you for a second my favorite accessibility tool ever, which is
Great.
Pop Socket.
Yes.
So this was like instrumental to me when I was hospitalized because I was paralyzed on my left side for over a month, and I couldn't use my left hand, and I'm left-handed. And so I couldn't text or anything because I could just, the phone is so big, like you can't, I couldn't do it with my right hand anyway. And so think just small adjustments or pieces of technology, like cut fruit at the grocery store, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, things like
Yeah.
that.
That's a
are-
great
That
example.
is a really great example.
There's so
That
many
is a
simple things. So I'm looking at the report here because I scrolled down to the Lincoln School, which was built right before I think my kids went. So geez, now I guess it is older, but it's relatively new. But there's one of the doors. It requires greater than 5 pounds of force to open, and what you need to do, it's 11 requires 11 pounds, and I guess that's the standard. So you need to adjust it, and it costs $0. Like there's a lot of stuff like that too, right? In the in the report, or a pop socket that costs whatever, short money, or things to be aware of. That's why I like the awareness thing.
We're not always about elevators. We're not always looking to put in the most expensive possible solution for every building.
Right. That's great.
Well, thank you. This has been fantastic, and
Yeah.
thank you for all of your work. Yeah, of course.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I'm gonna reach out to you guys separately. You talked about wanting to educate more people and to do some speaking engagements. And one of the things I'm interested in, David, I talked to you about this when we went to your program at the MLK Day of Service. There's a lot of people in town that produce events all the time, events and meetings, and it'd be great to do a workshop on accessible events. We've spent a lot of time thinking about that sort of stuff with the Creative Alliance. So
I'll mention really quickly that we are working on a whole toolkit around that right
yes, I'd love to talk to you about that. Yeah.
By the Victorian Fair. Our goal is by the Victorian Fair that will be done.
Great. Well,
oh my God, the Victorian Fair. That must have some
accessible
accessibility
events.
issues. Thank goodness they didn't inspect that thing. That's just chaos. I mean, no offense to the Victorian Affair organizers. We appreciate your.
We love you.
Well, see, I have dark memories from my early days in Melrose with the kids in a double wide stroller trying to navigate the Victorian Fair, and it was not fun. It scarred me for many years.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. We really learned a lot. Thank you for the work that you're doing, and for joining us for Valentine's Day. And
so we're going to sign off with the theme song. We told you this before. So when you hear the music, dance if you want to.
If you can and you want to, dance it off with us.
Dance it off with us. And so thank you all for coming to the show. We appreciate it very much. And everybody, we will see you around an increasingly compliant and accessible town.
Yes.
Yes.